Okay, sorry about that on the last video. I accidentally shut it off, so here's the video part 2, chapter 5 of the of, um, social deviance. So this link is a sort of a prevention. It talks about 10 different prevention devices for rape. In other words, a lot of it is protection devices, what women could carry with them or wear, and some of it, no, I don't want people to think I'm taking this light, but it sounds pretty serious to me, actually, what some of these people are doing to make sure that they're safe. And self-preservation is a key, especially when we're living in a society that's so full of pornography and full of lacking of values and worldview that condemns these kinds of things and winks at it and sorts and doesn't, we have the Me Too movement, but at the same time it only applies to people who are are unable to defend themselves in court. Jeffrey Epstein is the best example. I'm going to put a link to him below these videos, so you can think about this in terms of the real life, real world we're living in. So that's okay. We did this one, so I'm going to go on. Let's see here. Rape's common in prisons, more so than man-on-woman rape outside of prison. You have what's called these bull dykes or bull homosexuals that are really, that's the thing about some of even on those preventive deterrents to rape that are on the video link I gave you. Some of those they're not looking at the fact that rape isn't about being attractive. Rape is about power, and it's a violent crime. It's not I don't even know that you can. It's a sexual crime because it involves sex, but it's not a sexually motivated crime. It's a power motivated crime. It's a way for men to assault women with their private parts, essentially, or in some sense of with their body. So, because rape is not just about intercourse rape. It can be intercourse of any penetration. So it can be a finger, can be another object, anything. It's not just a penis penetration. It can be any kind of penetration. And in prison, what happens is these bull homosexuals wouldn't even call themselves homosexual, but they look for these young men coming into prison who are vulnerable. Obviously, they're new to the situation. They don't know the rules. They don't know what all the culture is that they're walking into, and they'll victimize them because they're easily victimized. And you actually do need an affiliation in a lot of the big prisons in order to survive. You need to be affiliated with a group, a gang, and or be totally by yourself and just be as isolated as you can and lift weights and do things all by yourself. But they're still going to try to they test you to see if you're testable and usable. Outside prison, there's less rape of men. You don't hear about it that much. And when men rape men, physical force is often used. So because men are more physical, you're more likely to use physical force. Why are there so many rapes in prison? The general public has little or no sympathy for convicts. I've said this all along, all through my years of having worked with federal parolees and living, and I also worked in a prison. Now the prison I worked in was a mental health prison, so it was what you would call a quote unquote safe prison. It's maximum security, and the prisoners had a lot of privacy more than in a regular prison. So you didn't have a prison bunkie. You lived by yourself in your own cell, and you got out in the community. There was a little community. Every morning you were required to get out of your cell, unless you were in isolation. So you'd go out to the day room, essentially. It's more like a psychiatric unit, and a locked psychiatric unit with prison guards. It was it was really a disgusting situation. But the prisoners liked that one, quote unquote, liked it compared to the other prison because they were protected there. They weren't vulnerable, or they were vulnerable, but they weren't victimized by other convicts who could take advantage of them because of their weakness or see them as a weak person. But the thing is about people in prison is that you don't hear people having much sympathy for them, right? What goes on in a prison, we don't hear much about it. If there's minor crime in prison, you don't even hear about it. Yeah, if there's a murder or a suicide, maybe, you might hear about it one day on the news, and then we go on. There's no big investigation unless it's Epstein, and he didn't even get investigated. Not by our Justice Department. Are you kidding me? We know now that our Justice Department is corrupt. Our FBI, some of the men and women in the FBI are corrupt. CIA, corrupt. We know that they've participated in corrupt activities, illegal activities. It's been proven, but who's going to throw them in jail? They're at the top of the food chain, so to speak. So if you don't believe me, you can come to me later and I can just show you. We can look it all up. It's out there in the public, that a president of the United States, they tried to run a coup on him, and they're still trying to get rid of him because they're scared to death of him. He's going to come back, and they're scared to death. They know they can't stop him this time. They know he's educated in the ways of their deceptions. Now see, I'm probably getting on all kinds of trouble getting off. So rapists go unpunished in prison too. So they might, in fact, it's sort of winked. That's just part of the culture. You just need to protect yourself. You might have another gang that would protect you, but you pay your price for that too. The wolves, or the bulls, rapists, are not segregated from the punks, victims, and the rape is used as a prison management tool to pacify violent inmates so they'll not turn against the staff. Worst of all, many of the offenders in prison sexual abuse are staff members. So it's not only the wonderful prisons, it's the guards. Now, like the one I was at, that would be really difficult to pull off because there was too much observation. So you were pretty much never alone, even in the shower. There was a prison guard standing outside in the unit's hallway, watching you take a shower. It's just kind of that's kind of humiliating, but it's also one of the protections of being there, is that nobody could do anything to you without it being right out in the open. And they wouldn't be able to get away with it, I don't think. I mean, maybe I don't know. I never heard of it while I was there. But in a regular prison, basically they let the prisoners run the prison, essentially. Now, the prison commandant might disagree with me about that, but in some ways they do. They let the culture of the prison run the prison, so that if this is going on, it's a way to keep these violent guys pacified, and they won't turn against the prison guards. And prison guards also get involved in trafficking the drugs and all that stuff too, for the same reason. First of all, you can make money, a lot more money than you do paid as a prison guard. Prison guards get paid literally nothing, practically, for the kind of work they have to do. It's horrible, and the crap they have to put up with. They end up becoming, some of them end up becoming traffickers, and they also, if they have a tendency toward rape, it's a place they can get away with it. And in a men's prison as well as in women's prison, they'll have women or men officers as well. And every once in a while you hear about it'll be a short scandal in the news, and then it'll go away. Nobody will really hear anything about it, because who cares about a convict? See, so it's a setup. Outside the prison, half the male offenders know their victims, so it's somebody that maybe they already have a relationship with in some way. One half of the victims are heterosexuals, and the rapist assaults them with the intent to punish or dominate them. So the heterosexual rapist assaults a homosexual, or chooses to have a homosexual rape in order to dominate. And that's what I mean. I don't think sex is sexually motivated. I think it's to dominate or punish, to dominate someone. Can women rape men? Is that even possible? Men can be raped by women because rape is basically an expression of power. So if somebody were to, well, I'm not going to describe it, but hold down a person, wouldn't have to be sexually motivated, but it could be, and violate them in some way. Maybe a woman, there are women that are stronger than some men, and or maybe would overwhelm them with something like a stun gun or something like that and do something to them. It's possible. It's not as nearly as common, because women aren't usually that damaged that they would do that, but we're working toward those kinds of things in our society where there's no limit put on people. Literally no limit. As long as you don't get it caught, you're fine. And even if you get caught, if you have enough money, we'll let you off. Child molestation is a form of rape because the victim is too young and cannot legally give consent to sex. So even as a teenager, they're too young to give consent. They don't know what they're doing. You don't even as a 20-year-old, some of you aren't mature enough to make good decisions. You need to let your brain continue to grow and learn from having normal relationships with people, so that before you're ready for that sexual relationship with your husband or wife. Girls are more likely than boys to be molested, so it's kind of the same patterns from the adults. Molesters are more likely to know their victims, so most of the time it's somebody in the family or a family member, friendly family member, or somebody who's living in the family residence, or a family friend that's familiar to the child. Molesters are usually unmarried and suffer from social incompetence, so they're not likely to take the risk of having a relationship with an adult, and they're so retarded in the sense of developmental or emotionally that they can't initiate contact with adults, and so they begin to initiate contact with children who are much easier to connect with, and that's the beginning of the problem. Also, they didn't put in here, child pornography is a huge aspect of this. Compare with men who rape adult women. Men who molest young girls have these characteristics. The molesters are much older. Most are over 35 years of age, while most rapists are under 20. Like I said, if you're still at over 25 years of age, say 35 years of age, and you're still unable to have an adult relationship, it becomes more tempting, I think, to look toward the other direction. And you relate more on a childlike level in a human adult body. Molesters are more likely than rapists to have been abused as children. Kind of makes sense. That's psychodynamic theory that you carry on, like in psychodynamic theory that I understand with sex offenders, is that if you're offended as a child by a sex offender, you can go one of two ways. You can stay a victim, or you can become an offender. And I'm not saying that those are the only two choices. Those are the choices that are more likely to happen if you don't get help. So I help people that are victims, have been victims for the intensive psychodrama therapy that I do at 4.5 days, 5 days of therapy with one person or with a group of guys. Most of them have been sexually molested as children. And so we help them to be an adult and look at that situation that they went through as a child from an adult perspective, and change something about that drama. So we might set the drama up in some way where they can shift from being that child victim to being the adult survivor and conqueror, where they can overcome that perpetration that happened to them. Molesters are more gentle and passive, while rapists are tougher and rougher. Usually, molesters of children aren't going to be violent. They're going to be more. They're going to get the child to conform to them, to allow them to do whatever they want. They might threaten them with, "Don't tell your mother. What if your mother found out about what we did? You're going to be in a lot of trouble." Or you'll just kill your parents. Molesters are less likely to resort to physical force or vaginal penetration, and more likely to restrict themselves to fondling the victim or being fondled. It should have added that. Molesters are much less capable than rapists of getting along with adult members of the opposite sex, less skilled, more nervous, and less assertive in interacting with women. And most molesters commit the offense against the same child for a certain length of time, while rapists attack different victims. And most molesters admit their guilt, while most rapists refuse to do so. So when they get caught, most of them say, admit it. They just say, I did it. I can't, they don't try to hide. And think about it, if you don't have enough stamina or enough, if you're not developed enough to have a relationship with adults, when the adults confront you, you're like a little kid in being confronted. Men who molest young girls differ considerably from rapists. Boy victims are more likely than other boys to grow up to be child abusers. So if you're a boy victim, you're more likely to react in the way, like I said, you can either be a victim or an abuser, and boys are more likely, and we're talking about a research curve here, okay? There's all kinds of different, but they're saying more likely, probability is higher. The Catholic priest pedophiles have captured recent headlines through one of the most, actually more recent headlines. Epstein again has eclipsed the Catholic Church with his Orgy Island and all of his exploits with the powerful people like Clinton. Those of you guys that didn't grow up with President Clinton, he actually had sex with a 18-year-old what do you call them? Intern in the Oval Office, and was impeached for that and convicted. And you may have heard the famous, I probably haven't because it's not being played by the media, but the famous statement is, "I did not have sex with that woman." That Clinton made that statement. Well, I think they've come up with, some people say less than, but there's at least 26 trips on Epstein's airplane, Clinton did, and out to Orgy Island. It's an island I think it's in the Bahamas. Well, I'll show you, I'll give you a video that'll talk about that. Anyway, that's all for today and this week as far as lectures go. If I see you in class on Thursday, I hope I will see you in class. If not, this is it. I give you all this stuff to do. if I see you in class, we might watch some of this stuff and discuss it in class. Thank you for being. Stay warm. I hope you have. I have water and food and stay in. It's going to be we're gonna have another blow here this week.